Welcome to A Cup of Coffeyville. This is our third episode, Cup of Coffeyville, where we fill your cup with everything Coffeyville. We are happy today to go into taxes, right? That's what everybody wants to hear about. With me today, our county appraiser, Melody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Melody, maybe we can start off and you can just give, how long have you been at the county? How long have you done this role? Maybe some of your background there.
Sure. So my background originally started in real estate. And then in 2008, I switched over to county government and went into the assessor's office. So from 2008 till today, I've always been in the appraiser or assessor's office. I've been in Montgomery County as the county appraiser since 2021 and just reinstated my contract for another 4 years here. So.
Awesome. So, appraiser. What does appraiser do?
Sure.
What is that? Tell us about it.
So, being a county appraiser, we are in charge of listing, discovering, assessing properties that is our Kansas state statute requirements. So we value property. Basically, that's what we're looking for. We're looking to any type of demolition. We end up removing that off of the tax roll. Any new structures we end up adding. Okay. But that's pretty much our requirements.
So why do we need an appraiser? Why do we even have to have that?
Sure. So we are responsible for market value, which then gives entities the city's tax dollars. Property taxes are the single biggest source generator for tax dollars. So that's why they need a county appraiser. We're also different than fee appraisers. We do everything based on mass appraisal. So we are appraising a group of properties. We do not go house by house and do fee appraisals. So that's how we differ a little bit.
I don't think I even realized that. So you're not coming to look at just this one property.
Correct.
You're looking at a block?
Correct. We're looking at a neighborhood.
Okay.
So that's how we have to do our appraisals. So it's a little bit different than fee appraisers. Okay. A lot of times when you're purchasing a home, you'll end up getting a fee appraisal when you purchase a home or right before you purchase. With us, we actually look at how that neighborhood is reacting to the market. So if we see that a neighborhood in particular is going up 3%, we go ahead and raise the population 3%. So we do mass appraisal, which is a little bit different. We're looking at groups of properties, similar type properties as well. So for example, we have neighborhoods delineated based on size, structure, year built. So that way we can compare as close to apples as possible.
Okay. So you've kind of made my mindset go a little different here for a second. So let me throw this one at you. And I know this is not necessarily the wheelhouse of the county, but when you talk about property tax, I know there's movements in our country to change that and adjust that. So today in our country, that is the majority of states do it this way?
Correct. The majority of states are market value. So I know that the states that I've worked in, they were all market value states.
Okay.
I can't think of offhand who isn't market value, but most of them are market value.
So our country is run on the backs of property taxes. We're not here to debate politics and positions, but that's how it works.
Absolutely.
So how that affects our state then is we have state requirements. So your position at the county, most things at the county are based on state requirements.
Correct.
So where does local control within that come? Is there any difference there, or is that all mandated through state?
Yes. So ours is all mandated through the Property Value Division of the Kansas Department of Revenue. So we are actually state mandated. There's no local control other than when it comes to neighborhood revitalization, things like that, RHIDs. That's a little bit more local control where I need to work closer with those entities.
So if people want to change the way property tax is done, it's not necessarily coming to a city commission meeting. It's going to the state and talking to state representatives. I know that's every year it seems like they're talking about that.
Correct.
Again, so it's you'd have to go to your state officials to make that level of change. On the local change, it's what exactly the rate of that taxation is. Is that correct?
It would be your mill levies. So every taxing entity sets a budget, and that requires so many mills to fund that budget.
Okay, wait a minute. Mills. let's. What is a mill? What are we talking about here?
So a mill levy is basically, and each entity is different, depending on their budget.
City, school district, county.
Correct.
Okay.
So everyone, college, everybody is paying. They're looking at their budget. They see how much the valuation has increased, and they do math to see how much their mill levy needs to do to generate that amount for their budget.
Okay.
And that's where it comes into more of a local control. But you are correct. I get that question a lot, Ben, in regards to what do I do if we're not happy about paying property taxes in Kansas? And you're exactly right. Reach out to your state government. So you've got the House of Representatives, you have your state senators. Best thing to do is reach out to them so your voice can be heard.
Now, that would be for removing or redoing it. Now, I could come locally and say, this mill we're talking about, which has a dollar value signed, hey, you, city commission, school district, college, whatever it may be, county, we think you're charging us too much, because they can choose a lower mill. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So there's what they call that revenue neutral rate, which I believe the past 2 years, this is a little out of my wheelhouse. The county clerk does that. But with that being said, it's new legislation, because what they're looking for is when you are planning to exceed revenue neutral, for those taxing entities to be transparent as to what are they spending that extra money on. They need to have those conversations with the taxpayers, have taxpayers come up, have their voices heard. And then, they decide then at that point, do we exceed revenue neutral for the items we may need, or do they back off and stay at revenue neutral?
I see. So as a first-time city manager myself, been here a year now, I talk with a lot of other city managers, and it's interesting, their passion for, we can't have that go away. Yet I've been a resident where it's like, why are you taxing me on property taxes? I feel like there's a little bit, it's kind of disjointed between us as citizens in this country want our services at where we want them. We don't want things going away. We want
Correct.
Police on the streets. We want firemen to call. We want streets done. We want all these things, but then there's a cost that goes with it. So if we are saying, why are you evaluating my house this much? My taxes are going up. That's how these local communities fit their budget. So maybe this is my plug to take a minute and say, come to our budget work sessions, come hear the budget process and understand what we're having to pay for.
Absolutely.
Because this is all now tied together. It really starts with your office going out there and setting values.
Correct. So how it works is we set the value, and then the budget information sheets go out based on, and every taxing entity gets that budget information sheet. So what happens is once we have our valuation, once we have the exemptions in there, if there's any neighborhood revitalization rebate programs, we make sure all of that is tied in. So when the taxing entities are setting their budgets, it's based on actual tax dollars that they're going to be looking at.
Okay.
You are correct. It's having people show up and ask those questions. Also educating yourself, on what services, or opening up to people, what services are you willing to do without, and you will find that a lot of people like police, a lot of people like
those
fire.
Those are hard questions.
And those are tough questions, to answer, so.
Yeah. All right, this is probably the most important question we could ask. You talked about looking at a whole neighborhood for this valuation. So what if my neighbor paints their house? Is my taxes going up now? Because they painted it. It's brand new looking.
Just because you paint your home, no, absolutely not. It is based on market value. It is based on sales. How I look at it is if you are painting your home, you are maintaining your biggest investment. And that is awesome. That is great that you are protecting your biggest investment. We do not go, and because you went from yellow to now taupe, on your house color. We are not going taupe, brown,
okay.
beige.
See what I know.
Sorry. So it's not going to increase just based on your, house color. The other question too, Ben, we get a lot is landscaping. I put in 2 brand new Bradford pear trees. My taxes went up. Congratulations that you landscaped your home and it looks really nice. We do not raise your value because of landscaping.
Okay.
Those are some misconceptions that are out there. It's solely based on what would you sell your home for today, or what are homes of comparable properties selling for in your neighborhood. Okay. That is how we base our value.
Okay. So sidewalks, driveways, where's the line where something that I do is going to affect my taxes?
Sure. So driveways, sidewalks on residential properties, we do not tax on those for residential. If you were to do a room addition, say, for example, on your home, you wanted to add a 10 by 13 enclosed porch. We would go ahead and that would be an addition on the tax roll because it's extra square footage. Yes, it may not be heated and cooled, but we actually have where we can decipher if it's an enclosed frame porch, is a living area. That is why our field team goes out and inspects any changes that you may have made to the property. Same thing by removing something. We've had a lot of people, with garages that are dilapidated or structurally not safe. If you go ahead and remove a garage, we will come out and we will make sure that we make that adjustment on your valuation.
Okay. So I'm hearing if my square footage of my house increases or decreases, there could be a tax change.
Correct. Okay. Or if you were to add an outbuilding, hypothetically, if you were to add a pole barn or something like that. So yes, it goes by your living square footage, but if you were to do an implement building, then that would also increase, as well as if you were to tear down an implement building, we would also remove that as well.
I see. So is there an argument to be made for, well, if I paint my house, I can sell it for more? Like, where does that line?
You're really not going to see much of a difference, especially if it's like for like. Okay. So what I mean by that is if you have brown and you're touching it up or you're freshening it up, I don't think that the market is going to be able to say, well, hey, now because of that, you're able to get $5,000 more. Okay. We're seeing more like for like items being equaled out. Same thing with the roof. We get that question a lot as well. Okay. I went ahead and I reshingled my roof. Well, again, it's your biggest investment. You're maintaining your biggest investment. You're protecting your biggest investment. My thing is that I'm happy you did that, but we're not going to go and raise your valuation just because you're maintaining and taking care of your home. Okay. It's solely based on what homes are selling for.
Gotcha. Okay. What is the difference between appraised and assessed? And which one is your office, and is the other one not your office? Or are they both your office?
They're both my office.
Okay.
So appraised is actually what you would consider your market value.
Okay.
So
a realtor comes in and says, we could sell it for this based on comparables.
Correct. So if a realtor comes in and says, hey, it's $200,000, then that $200,000 is what would be close to our appraised value. Okay. Assessed is when you start getting into taking your appraised value and you multiply it by that assessment rate. Now, we have different assessment rates in the state of Kansas. A lot of taxpayers did not know that. For example, residential is at 11.5%. You have commercial at 25%. So what you do is you take that appraised value, so a $100,000 home, take it times your 11.5%. That gives you your assessed value, which your taxes are based on. So your taxes are based on your assessed value after we apply that assessment rate.
Okay. So how do you know if I put on a 200 square foot addition on the back of my house. You talked about this team. Are they walking around my house looking? Is this on the record somewhere? Is it every year they show up to find out if I've remodeled? How does that work?
Those are great questions. We get those questions all the time. How do we know it's you? So let's start off with our field team. Our field appraisers are always wearing our county shirts with the county logo.
Okay.
And then we also have a lanyard with their ID.
Okay.
They will be in a county car as well.
Okay.
It will say Montgomery County Property Appraiser's Office.
Okay.
If it does not say Property Appraiser, it is not us.
Okay.
And like I said, we make sure we are easy to identify out in the public.
Okay.
17% plays into this. So you had asked about, do you just show up at my property? What do you do? 17% has always been in the Kansas state statute. And what that means is we have to review 17% of the parcels in Montgomery County every year. We are on a 17% cycle. Okay, so every year we take the amount of parcels, we divide it by 17%, and those are the ones that we go to. Now, how we make sure that we're not just hitting the same properties over and over and over, in our CAMA system, our computer system where we track everything, we have inspection histories in there. So it will show us who was out there, when they were out there, and what were they doing out there. Okay, was it 17%? Was it a sale? We also have to do field inspections every time that there is a transfer or sale in Montgomery County. So you will see us pretty much 3 times. It could be for 17%. It could be if you have recently purchased or sold a home, or it could be if you file an appeal. We always make sure if you do an informal appeal or a payment under protest, we go and take a look at the structure so we know physically what we're looking at, visually what we're looking at.
Okay, so let me get into this 17%, make sure I understand. So does that mean that I may not, if nothing changed at my house, I may not see you for like 6 years?
6 years, correct.
Okay. Unless I sell it. Now, if my neighbor sells, are you going to take a picture of my place too?
No, we are focused just solely on that property. So if it is a transfer, we are looking at that property. Sometimes too, we will get building permits from cities. That's another good point. Are you looking at my neighbors' homes? We only go and visit or inspect if there is a button that is pushed. And by that, I mean 17%, if there is a sale, if there's an appeal or a payment under protest, or if there's a permit issued. A lot of times too in the newspaper, it's my job to make sure I have my finger on the pulse of the community. A lot of people, when they're going through a lot of trauma and their house burned down and they don't know what to do, a lot of times, unfortunately, we are the last office that they're contacting their insurance company.
Yes.
They're contacting their family. We are the last office on their mind at that time. What I do is I'm working closely with emergency management, also Facebook, as we know, social media, and the newspaper as well, to make sure that when we have an event that happens, I am well aware, we'll go ahead and put a permit, and then we will go out and see if that structure is, demolished. Is it livable? Are they going to fix it? Kind of help them through the process if we can.
Okay. So 17%, how it affects us all. Is this a new rule? Is this something that Kansas the last few years has turned on? So I think some people may have felt like, well, it has never been that 6-year mark. It's been 10 years.
You are correct.
Or I've never seen them come by.
Or you've never seen us come by. The nice thing is now what we are doing, and I should have brought one, I apologize, we are leaving door hangers actually on every door that we inspect.
Okay.
First, what we do is we knock on the door to identify ourselves or the business. That is our first step to make sure that we identify ourselves to the taxpayers. We also will not talk to any minors as well. We will leave a card, and then for them to contact us if they wouldn't mind. But you will know when we visit, and by a large one, it is probably about that large. And it is what I like to call a very vibrant yellow-green.
Okay.
So you can't miss it.
Yeah.
You can't miss it. And what we will do is we will leave that information, our phone number to call. But it's just to make sure property characteristics are correct. It's always been in Kansas state legislation. The problem is we're doing a better job now since I have been there in trying to communicate with our citizens in Montgomery County. So this past year, yes, it's always been out there about 17%. But this past year, what I did is I actually identified in the newspaper, Montgomery County Chronicle printed it. In the newspaper, we had a nice map done. It showed the areas that we are going to be in, and it had a nice article with it. A lot of, phone calls came into the office. It's nothing new. It's nothing
You're
that I'm
just
doing on
communicating.
I'm just communicating and trying to let people know why we're out there and what we're doing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's always been around. It's just to ensure property characteristics are correct.
Well, I think it's one of those things that happens in the background. I don't ever think about it until maybe I get a notice or I see something in the paper. So it's not that it's all of a sudden happening. This is repeating every year.
Correct.
We're doing this. And it may be that someone doesn't see you for 6 years at a time.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So we've been talking about property tax from a real estate perspective. Does your office deal with personal property?
We do.
And what is personal property? What's the difference here?
So personal property is going to be anything that is not permanently attached to the real estate. And by real estate, I mean the land. So, for example, we have a lot of mobile homes and manufactured homes in the county. If they are not, so there is what is called a 3-fixture test, okay? The land has to be in the same person's name. So, for example, Ben, I'm going to use you. Okay. So if you own the land and the land is in your name, then you go and buy a manufactured home and you put it on the property in your name. So both pieces now are in your name. Okay. The third piece has to be that it's on a permanent foundation to be considered real property. So let's hypothetically say you put piers, you take off the tongue, you do what you need to do to make it permanent attached to the property. Okay. That would be real property. That means you would get one tax bill. You would get that one tax bill for the land, the building, and it would all be on one. Okay. When you have personal property, so let's hypothetically say you own the land, but now I want to come put a mobile home on there. So you're leasing me a little portion of the land to put my manufactured home or mobile home on. Because I don't own the land, it would be considered personal property. So personal property, it's still the same assessment rate. So you are still looking at 11.5%, but now
for residential.
Okay. I would go ahead and get my own personal property tax bill. You would get a tax bill based on the real estate. So we're able to kind of divide it out. So you would be paying on the land. I would be paying on my mobile home.
Okay. So if we're talking an RV or an ATV, a side-by-side, those sort of things, I have to go in and get those tagged. So am I getting taxed twice because it's sitting at my house and I got to go register it?
So it's interesting you bring that up. Okay. There was new legislation that was just passed starting for 2026. Okay. And this is kind of hot off the press when it passed. So we had a lot of discussion with the side-by-sides, the ATVs, the UTVs. You see them going down the streets. A lot of cities have made them to where they're allowing them.
Yeah, Coffeyville has too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, they're already paying a fee. Well, yes, they were having to register those as well with our office to pay personal property tax. Okay. What the state legislators have now done starting in 2026 Your side-by-sides, your ATVs, your UTVs, golf carts, motorcycles, mopeds, watercraft, trailers under 15,000 pounds.
Okay.
Those are all going to be exempt, which means you will, from here on out, not be paying any personal property tax. And let me repeat, that's on watercraft. That is on boats. So if you have a boat, if you have a trailer, and you have a motor, that is all going to be exempt. Starting in 2026,
Okay.
those will be exempt.
So if that's parked in my driveway
Correct.
and your office shows up, your blinders are on. You're not.
I have to be. Legislation passed.
Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have to go register it now.
Still
and
need to
so I'm paying taxes on it. I'm just not paying it at two different types.
You're not paying two different types.
Okay.
You will be paying one instead of paying the registration fee and everything else, and personal property tax. You'll just be paying one now.
So if every 6 years I've been hiding my boat in the garage, I don't have to hide it anymore.
You don't have to hide it anymore.
Okay.
Same thing with your golf cart. You don't have to hide that
Now,
anymore.
Cars? Did you say that was in there? Cars and trucks?
No, cars and trucks
Okay.
are not in
So
there.
what's the difference
No.
here?
So cars and trucks are going to be tagged. So that's through the tag office.
Okay.
So those will be tagged. Now, if you have a off-highway or you have a heavy truck, those will still be personal property tax. You will be paying personal property tax on that. So they did away with some, not all. They're moving in the right direction for trying to help taxpayers out. So the legislation really did a good job this year of bringing several things to light to try to help property taxpayers in the state of Kansas.
So what I'm hearing is people are going to see a reduction. This starts in 26. Does that mean I don't see a reduction until my 27
You will
taxes?
actually see it in your December tax bill in 2026. So taxes are due 2 times a year, and this is the treasurer's function, but twice a year. So you have taxes due in December and May.
Okay.
So being that this legislation just went into place January 1st, 2026, that means that if you do have watercraft or a side-by-side or an ATV or a UTV, you will not be receiving a personal property tax bill in December. I think Mandy going forward will be our new county treasurer. So when she's mailing those out next year, so not this year we're still paying on, but next year in 2026, come December, you will not be paying on those items.
Okay, reduction's coming. Now, what about, do you anticipate legislation around this is going to continue up to that point? So more may come off?
I do. And there's something interesting to me that we talk about uniformity and equity. You know, we want everyone paying their fair share. We don't want anyone paying any more or any less. We want to make sure that there's equity across the properties. One of the biggest issues that came up this past year in legislation, and this was very interesting, was commercial, industrial, machine, and equipment.
Okay.
That is called SEMA. So SEMA was basically said, if you acquire, say you own a business and you acquire equipment prior to, and don't quote me on the date, but I want to say it was 2006. If you acquire equipment in your business, okay, before 2006, you are paying property tax on that, personal property tax on that. However, let's say, Ben, you open a new business in Montgomery County. All of your equipment is new. That is exempt because it is after that date. So you are not paying personal property tax, but the person with the older equipment is. I find that ironic that we're using a date where it should probably be treated equally all the same across the board. It came up, a big one came up with Bartlett, the grain elevator, the soybean plant. So a lot of that was personal property, or AKA SEMA.
Okay.
It is exempt. It is not on the tax roll. But I did have someone come in from Montgomery County, a small business owner. They are actually paying on old machine and equipment because of the fact they can't afford new, and they're having to pay personal property tax. So that's kind of a tough pill to swallow for taxpayers when they see that this is exempt over here, but yet over here, because of a date, mine are not. So you asked a really good question. Do I think that this was the first part of it? I do. I really do. I see them actually, especially taxpayers are demanding it. Taxpayers are demanding uniformity, transparency, being treated fairly. And so with that being said, I do see more legislation hopefully in the works, maybe the end of this year or next year. But I'm hopeful that they will be doing more for taxpayers.
So never before have I looked at a conversation like this from the eyes of working in the city. What I'm from the benefit of a resident is, hey, we're on track to have some relief.
Yes.
From a city manager who has to figure out how to pay for the services that everybody wants, there's a reduction. So whether it's the city, whether it's the county, whether it's the school districts, college, whatever taxing entities are out there, they're also going to see a reduction. So does that mean you think they're going to try to make up for it? What kind of conversations are going to come or have to come because of this?
So what we're looking at is what the impact is going to be as far as this first part of it. So we are running numbers now to currently see what kind of valuation we're looking at in reduction. Overall, I don't think we're going to see much of an impact because these are not valued. So these items here that I was talking about for personal property, they are not valued at, basically a home's value. You have a golf cart, it may be valued at, appraised value. It might be $500, it might be $800. So we're not going to see a huge impact for the cities or the entities, whether it's your schools, college, cities, county. You're not going to see a huge impact because you also have to remember property values are continuing to increase.
Of course.
Okay, so more than likely it will be a balance is what I think we're going to be able to see, hopefully.
Okay, interesting. Very complicated. Where do people
is.
go to find out about the new legislation and to understand when and how? They call your office? Do they get online?
The best thing to do is to call our office. We try to be up on all of the legislation. I am constantly watching them online. The taxation committee, especially the Senate taxation committee, a lot of good legislation came out of the Senate Taxation Committee this year. I believe Senator Karen Tyson is the chairwoman for that committee. Senator Virgil Peck is also on the Taxation Committee. Okay. I'm not sure if those assignments will change, but they really represented us well. Okay. Watching that too, it keeps me well informed for any new changes that may be coming down the pike.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about maybe differences. You kind of mentioned residential, commercial, industrial. What about someone who this is their residence, but they have an acre or two or three, or just outside the city, they have a bunch of acres versus the person inside? Are there differences there in types of land and how you assess and appraise?
So types, yes. So basically when it's ag land, so agricultural land, any ag productivity. So for example, if there's dry crops on it, if there's hay, if you have cattle, if it is an ag production, then what we have to do is we apply an ag use rate. So when you're looking at a difference, it's how the property is being used. So if you are using it for hunting, recreational land, you're going to be looking at roughly anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $5,000 an acre in appraised value. Where if you have ag land, you're going to be looking at maybe roughly around $400 to $600 an acre versus the, $3 to $5, maybe even $7,000 an acre. Okay. So it's quite a big difference when you're looking at ag land and you're looking at recreational land. Okay. And again, ag land, it has to have some type of ag production. So, let's hypothetically say, Ben, you have 10 acres and you end up, leasing to someone 5 acres to hay it. That would still constitute as ag land. Okay, so you would get that benefit to have that ag land.
Okay. What about exemptions? Am I able to get around any of this? Is there any, how much income I have affect this? Maybe veteran status or disability? What exemptions are out there for these kind of things?
So the best thing to do for exemptions, so something a little different in the state of Kansas, it is handled by the county clerk's office. Okay. So the county clerk's office is definitely someone to contact regarding homestead. You'll hear that a lot, homestead exemption. Okay. Definitely contact the county clerk's office for information. Now, when it comes to other exemptions, so let's hypothetically say that you had a commercial property that just sold and they are putting a church in. Then what the church can do is actually come to our office and they can fill out an exemption form to be exempt from property tax due to religious. There are exemptions out there for different things. Okay. So our biggest one is pretty much for any municipalities like the city of Coffeyville. It's anything that's in basically a land bank, anything that has to do with using it for religious purposes, humanitarian purposes, things like that. Okay. So they can always call our office just to get information on the different types of exemptions that are out there that we can provide, but also know the county clerk has other exemptions as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, what about, say I disagree. You came out, it was my 6th year, right, 17%, it was my time, and I see this fluctuation and I'm like, I didn't do anything different. Or I did just paint and it went up, so are you sure you're not doing paint? Like, how do I go take care of that? Do I have to call Virgil Peck on the committee up there for taxation? Do I call your office, commissioners?
So the best thing to do is to reach out to our office. There are actually, Kansas state legislation gives you 2 chances, and you can only do one, of course, but they give you 2 different times in which you can do what is called an appeal. So in March, when I send out the green envelopes and it says valuation notice on the green envelope, that is your first time where you can do what is called an informal appeal. Okay. All you have to do, we have made it so easy. All you have to do is call our office. There's no form to fill out. All you need to do is either call or send us an email. Okay. On our website, we do have an email that goes directly to certain individuals in the office. It's right on our webpage. The nice thing is we've made it so convenient. We've tried to be out there to help taxpayers understand the process. What we do, so that's the first time. The second time, if you miss that first time, so you have 30 days. Let me cover that. So the clock starts ticking March 1st. Okay. So March 1st is when those value notices have to be mailed out. You have 30 days in which to file an informal. What we do at that point is we come out, we talk to you, tell us what's going on with your home. We're not out there to look at your furniture. We're not out there to see what kind of car you drive. It is solely based on market value. It is solely based on what are other homes that are similar to yours selling for per square foot. Then we apply that to yours. So that's how we look at it. But we do require that we go out and do an inspection just to make sure that we're starting with the accurate information. Okay. If you ended up tearing down a pole barn and we weren't notified, that can be a reduction right there. Gotcha. So it helps when we have those conversations with our taxpayers to find out, is it really 3 bedrooms and 2 baths? Or is it 3 bedrooms, 1 full bath and a half bath? that makes a difference. Are you on a slab, a crawl, or a basement for your foundation? That makes a difference. So we always start with the property characteristics first. Make sure we have the most accurate information possible. Then we will pull comparables, okay? And we will share those with you. So it's not like we go behind some curtain and, sit here and just say, okay, we think it can be this much. Yeah. No, we actually pull comparables. We try to keep it within close to the same year built, close to the same size, close to the same style, close to the same bedrooms and bathrooms, okay? Also, if you have a home that's been remodeled and renovated versus a home that has not, we're going to compare you. If your home has not been remodeled and renovated, we're going to compare you to the properties that have not been remodeled and renovated. Okay. There is a price difference. I myself bought a, home that was built in, the 1920s. Okay, so with that being said, my home has been remodeled and renovated. My home per square foot is going to be more than a house that has not been remodeled and renovated, even if it is the same year built. Again, you don't have to do anything to your property, okay? I haven't done anything to my property. I'm not sure, Ben, if you've done anything to yours, but I haven't done anything to mine. So with that being said, my valuation did increase solely based on what other homes are selling for. So what we do is we'll have that conversation, we'll pull the comparables, and then we try to explain it to the taxpayers. If they are not happy, so that's the first time in March. So let's say you're still not happy, you feel like we didn't give you the answers and it's just not right. You haven't done anything to your home, even after we showed you all of the comparables, and you're still not happy, you can go ahead and file. There's a time frame, and you can file with the Board of Tax Appeals. Okay. That's after we have had our informal and the results have been issued from the county appraiser's office. Then you have time in which to file with the Board of Tax Appeals. Okay. The next time you only get one opportunity, but they do give you two chances. A lot of times people will say, well, I got that green envelope in the mail and I threw it in the garbage. I hear that a lot. That's fine. I understand. You see it's
Must
from
be
me.
Spam mail and thrown it away.
You see it's from me and you throw it away. That's fine. But we want to make sure that taxpayers, when they receive their tax bill, have that opportunity as well. Okay. We understand that maybe you thought it was spam mail, junk mail, whatever, and threw it away. So the Kansas legislature has put in place what is called a payment under protest. So what you can do is when you pay your first half of property taxes, you are able at that time, it has to be at that same time, you're able to do what is called a payment under protest. Basically, it's an informal appeal, but the only difference is with your informal in March, you don't have to pay anything. In the payment under protest for December, you have to pay the first half. Okay. Then what happens is if we make an adjustment, if an adjustment is merited, let's say you tore down that pole barn, we go ahead and make that adjustment. What happens then is the treasurer's office will go ahead and do a reconciled tax bill, and you'll pay on the difference in May.
Okay. Trends. Any trends out there things are happening in the country, things that are happening in the state that people should be aware of or even go and voice their opinions on?
Wow, we're seeing, I try to keep my finger on the pulse. I love what I do, so I'm very passionate about it. I watch other states and what they're doing as well. Some big legislation coming out of Florida is eliminating property taxes, period. Yeah. You're seeing other states get on board with this. So I know quite a few conversations are happening. The problem is it is our single largest source for budgets. Okay, so now what happens to your cities? What happens to fire and police? I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm not an expert, but we are seeing that, there's a lot of movement out there in having those discussions about property taxes, especially how high they are. There are articles out of Missouri, Indiana, Florida, where people are just stunned by their property taxes, just like here too. I get a lot of phone calls. I did nothing to my home. My property taxes went up, $500 for the year. It's hard.
That's not because you came. That's because
Correct.
the market changing.
Absolutely. And that's something I understand they haven't done anything to their home. Just like I have not done anything to my home, since I purchased it. The issue you're having is that as you see these trends where properties are increasing in value, and like I hear it all the time, I can't believe my neighbor got, $55,000 for that house.
Yeah.
I'm hearing those conversations all the time. That's what affects your value and your property taxes. That's what it is. It's based on those trends. Even if you did nothing to your home, we are a market value state. It's all based on the market. So as the market goes up, your value is going to go up. Just like in 2007, 2008, we saw a decline in the market. Values went down in 2007 and 2008, even in 2009. Now, one trend that I am seeing in Montgomery County, let's bring it closer to home. So we've got trends all over the nation, which are very interesting. I encourage people, Google it. There are some great articles out there, especially in regards to the movement with getting, eliminating property taxes, period. The other thing that's interesting is locally. Let's talk local with Montgomery County. We saw some pretty big trends. In 21, 22, even 23, we saw some pretty big trends here. We had a lot of movement here. A lot of people moving from other parts of the nation into, believe it or not, Montgomery County.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I heard was they could either work remotely. So they wanted to get out of living in the big cities. They couldn't afford it. Their money went a little further here. The other thing is for jobs here, believe it or not. We've had some movement with people coming into the area based on jobs, different employers hiring here in the county, which is great. That is awesome news to hear. Now we are seeing it's still increasing, but it's not increasing as much as what we saw in those earlier years. You're not having those 10, 12, 15% increases in value, okay?
Right.
In value. I'm not talking property taxes, but I'm talking your valuation. We're not seeing those huge jumps. I'm anticipating the final numbers are not done for next year, for 2026. I'm anticipating a small increase. I don't think we're going to see anything like we did where it was that 10 and 12%. I'm hoping that will be somewhere between maybe 3 and 5% for next year. Again, we're in July. I have to use a whole year's worth of sales. I roughly have about 6 months worth of data in. I don't have everything in July, but we're about halfway there. So I'm thinking our trend for next year will probably see a small increase, but it's tapering off to where we're not seeing those big spikes and those big jumps.
So that's interesting that you talk about that and those changes. And of course, like you mentioned, we saw Bartlett come in, and there's been some synergy around that. There's been other businesses that have come in. Coffeyville here, we've seen a Pete's gas station come, and a Domino's and Verizon, and there's several of them.
Don't forget your good restaurant.
Well, the Italian restaurant came.
You have several here, by the way.
Bill's came. Yeah, so
Right.
A lot of great things are happening there. There was an article in Montgomery County Chronicle a week or two ago, though, talking about the population and the next numbers, and it's a little bit lower again. So, I don't know what to believe there. I think when you look nationally, people are also leaving those places. Out west, there's extreme high home values, and so you can sell a home out there. You can come out to the Midwest, buy a home for nearly cash. Last year, I think in Coffeyville, we built about 10 homes.
Correct.
Were built.
Yes.
This year, we're on track for another 6 or 7 to be built. Looking at those stats, some of these people are from the outside. So the population fluctuation, whether it decreases or it increases, new business come and they don't, is that affecting this market and the rates that are there? So
the only thing that does affect it, if they are property tax payers, okay? So if that population decrease is property tax paying individuals, then it does spread to the rest of us, because you still have the cities and you still have the colleges and the schools that need to fund their budget. They're still looking at X amount of dollars. So even if you have a small decrease in population, that gets spread out then to the others. So
birth rate could be down.
it could be down.
So the same amount of property is here, the same amount of ownership is here, even though the number of people. That's what you're saying.
That's how I'm wording it, because I don't really know where exactly that population decrease is. Because we are seeing, we're seeing sales coming in all the time. And you're exactly right, Ben. We're seeing a lot of people coming from the East Coast and the West Coast. We're actually seeing movement too from Texas. We have Texas. We also have some people from Illinois. Wisconsin was another big one we had as well. So we're seeing a moving here, and you're right. It's because their money can go further here. So they're looking at it that way. And they're also looking at getting away from, I had a phone conversation with a taxpayer the other day. They just wanted to get away from the big city living, the traffic, and, they love it here because the traffic isn't bad. It also, they said to me, and this was something that hit home, how nice everyone has been to them. And that they went out to a restaurant and people were saying hello, or as they're driving down the road, they wave. Where this individual came from, they did not do that. So it was a little eye-opening experience for them, having that type of hospitality that we have here. So, but we're finding people are coming here to enjoy it. So it speaks volumes to our communities and what they're doing.
Well, so trends, let's look at Coffeyville for a minute, and I'd be interested in your perspective on some of the changes we've made and what you're seeing there, but both from tax perspective, growth. So this last budget, so for this year, city commissioners here decreased our mill. They cut it by about 50%, which most cities that I talk to and city managers, when I say that, they look at me like I'm crazy. How in the world could you do that? From your angle, seeing that market changes, trends in Coffeyville, is that impactful? What do you think there?
It's amazing to me. So your mill levy in 2023 was about 190. I believe that was your mill levy. Overall, everything included in the city. So that's your schools, that's the city, that's going to be, everything built into there. For 2024, you went to about, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, about 150, I believe 153. Taxpayers were able to see a reduction here in Coffeyville, and without sacrificing the benefits. So I know that, you'll hear from a few. I have them too in the county, and that's fine. But here's the thing. Overall, your services, did you decrease your police or your fire at all?
No, we haven't.
See? Yeah. And those are huge to have, to have that fire protection and law enforcement. So I am seeing that the taxpayers here in Coffeyville, of course, everyone wants more, okay, but it was a huge reduction, and that you didn't have to really reduce those major services.
And that's, I think, what the commissioners articulated when they did that was we want it to be attractive for people to move here to Coffeyville, that people may choose going to the county because in the county, that's one less taxing entity, right? Because you don't have that city. So
correct.
They made that adjustment to try to say, well, now you can move into the city limits. It's a little bit less, maybe an increase in services because 5 or 10 miles away, you don't have the response of fire, police. I will say, though, from the person on the operations side, as I see those dollars go away, yes, we haven't been able to, but it also makes me worried. And how do we cover? And there's a benefit in town that there is sales tax. So this is a different tax we're now talking about.
Correct.
I think it's like 33% of the people who pay sales tax in town aren't from here. So that's people commuting into work or just passing through. So that is a big benefit. And maybe that goes to one of your national trends. Do we take a greater look at sales tax if property tax is going to be pushed lower. Is that the next big thing?
You're seeing that the national trends, I'm not sure locally, but seeing some of the national trends come across. They're talking about reducing property taxes and increasing sales tax. And the reason being is they are trying to capture the ones who are coming to enjoy for recreational purposes, who don't live there.
Not just the residents.
Correct. And that's something to look at is if that's going down. So I can understand nationally why they're looking at that, where they would increase their sales tax, because it's not just affecting the local taxpayers, it's affecting anybody who is traveling through or doing recreational or for business. They're capturing those tax dollars as well.
Okay. Well, I think that's about all my questions. Is there anything that you want residents in the county to know about your office and what you do? Anything else that you would want to tell them?
I would just like to say, if you have questions, reach out to us. There is, I get it all the time. Well, I saw this person post something on social media. I'm not responding on social media. Call me. I'm available. If I'm not in the office, I have a wonderful team that is underneath me. They can help answer questions as well. My biggest thing is, let's make sure your property characteristics are accurate, because I don't want you paying on something that you shouldn't be paying on. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know to inform me if they tore down a garage or a pole barn or, part of the house. They might have had two houses on their property. One was dilapidated and they tore that one down. Please reach out to us. Let us know. That's what we're there for. We try to be very kind and patient. It's a tough process to understand. They don't make it easy, especially when you're dealing with people's tax money and you're dealing with money out of their own wallet. It becomes very personal. I know for a lot of people, it's very personal. We are here to help where we can, or help educate or help explain. So just know that we are doing what we can to help. Of course, we have Kansas state statute we follow. Yeah. So we always make sure we're at market value, but we will explain, or if there's a resource, or, I did have a lot of taxpayers who were talking about property tax caps. You have a lot of states who have property tax caps, Florida being one of them. So that legislation was brought up this past session, and the best thing to do is reach out to your legislature. So we actually supplied them with phone numbers, because a lot of people didn't know where to look for Senator Peck's phone number. If they just moved here and didn't know him. I know a lot of people know him, but it's stuff like that we can help with, or at least direct you to who to talk to. But just know we're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And I've got a great staff underneath us, or underneath me. Our field team is incredible. They try to be patient with everyone too. So just know they're out there doing their jobs. We don't want to make it stressful or to have a bad experience. But we're here to help. We really are. And we're trying to educate taxpayers. Before me, there wasn't this dialogue that we're having today. Everything was kind of, behind closed doors. And to me, I feel that we need to have these discussions and get out there and talk like we're doing today.
Awesome.
So
thank you for coming.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
Everyone, this was a cup of Coffeyville. Thank you. If you have suggestions on people you want to hear from and topics that you want us to discuss, please share those and join us next time. Thanks.
Thank you.